By its decision to grant Zimbabwe's First Lady Grace Mugabe diplomatic immunity. The International Relations Department says the decision was not taken lightly. Well, to unpack, SABC News spoke earlier to Professor Hennie Strydom, who holds the South African Research Chair in International Law at the University of Johannesburg. We began by asking him what diplomatic immunity is, who, besides heads of state and diplomats, are eligible to receive it.
At least we know now that when Grace Mugabe entered the country, she didn't have diplomatic immunity. Purely, I think, because of the fact that she didn't qualify for immunity at the time. So the granting of the immunity at this point in time, I think, is done retrospectively in order to cover up that situation. And I think that's a fraudulent use of diplomatic immunity in this instance.
Does the minister have any discretionary powers to give diplomatic immunity after the fact?
Yeah, in terms of our Diplomatic Immunities Act, the government has a discretion to extend immunity to certain persons on an ad hoc basis. But of course, there must be substantial grounds for granting that.
What are those grounds, if I may ask you?
Well, first of all, the person must represent a government for official purposes in South Africa, for purposes of a conference, a conclusion of a treaty, or whatever other kind of official business that person is sent to deal with. And the facts that we have at this point in time is that she was here on a private visit and not representing the Zimbabwean government.
Yeah, I did it last week, and I went onto the official social media channels of the ZANU-PF government, and they made an announcement that the First Lady is coming to South Africa to a hospital to have her foot checked because she had she injured herself at the airport. That kind of evidence in the cases that's going to ensue now, are you sure that will become weighty evidence as this matter goes through the courts?
Absolutely. That kind of evidence is highly relevant, and I think this will also be part of the assessment that needs to be made in order to see whether the government has acted lawfully in this instance or not.
What do you make in the delay that happened with regards to the granting of immunity?
I think it was badly handled, similar to the al-Bashir case. And I think that's part of the problem here. And if there's one person with egg on his face today, that's the Minister of Police. Because towards the end of last week, he assured the South African population that all steps have been taken to prevent Ms. Mugabe from leaving the country. And that she was flown out on an official plane. She was assisted by the South African government in the same clandestine way as al-Bashir was assisted to leave the country.
How do you think this matter will play out in international relations between Zimbabwe, South Africa, and in the wider SADC? We heard that there were some heads of state that were not happy with the fact that it took so long to grant diplomatic immunity.
Yes, I want to say quite frankly that I dispute the fact that this was done in order to further international relations between Zimbabwe and South Africa and the other SADC countries. I think this sort of a decision was taken purely to assist friends across the border. And obviously there will be, I think, happy minds and voices on the other side that South Africa has taken that decision. But I don't think that all heads of state agree with the decision that has been taken.
If you had to look at this matter purely in law, with the challenges that are about to follow with the likes of AfriForum, it's even going to go to Parliament. In law, what does this case look like in law?
I think there's a fairly strong case that the granting in this case was unlawful and that the minister has not applied her mind and the decision was taken irrationally. I want to add to that. When things like this happen continuously, we have to ask our question, what does it mean for our national legal system and what does it mean for our international law system? The undermining effect of this, I think, is something that we cannot tolerate.
You talk about this undermining our standing as a constitutional democracy. What do you mean with that undermining?
Well, we have put in place in 1994 a fantastic constitutional system with checks and balances, with guarantees for citizens, and with controls over government. And we have to sort of support and maintain that. If we allow government to continuously undermine it, it will eventually erode the whole system and let it fall apart.
Now, you're the expert. You're the right person to ask this question. We put it to our viewers today, and we ask about weighing up international relations and good relations with our neighbor, weighing that up with justice for citizens. Where is that counterbalance? Is there a counterbalance? We put it to a poll even for our viewers.
I've seen the results of the poll. I think that international relations is one factor that must be put in the basket for assessment. And the mix will change in different circumstances. But every time that must be properly assessed and a rational judgment must be made on the basis of what you have.
Yeah.
But I want to add, again, I don't think this is about international relations. And I think it was just used in order to justify the decision that was taken.
All right, so lots of controversy following South Africa's decision to grant the First Lady of Zimbabwe diplomatic immunity. She's now back in Zimbabwe. Look at news from further afield.